Hey everyone, thanks for clicking on my channel. Today I'm gonna go over some concepts from an essay that I wrote pretty recently, about a month ago. And what the heck is this essay? This essay is an adaptation of Rawlsian philosophy and his theory of justice and applied to spirituality. And for those of you who are familiar with Rawls, you might realize, oh, this doesn't seem like the kind of guy that writes about spirituality. And to a large extent, I think you're right. But one day I was just sitting in my kitchen and I was like, oh my God, I got this idea. And I wrote this essay and I'd like to share it to a larger audience on YouTube and get a chance to give some commentary on it as I read it. So I'm going to start reading. Yep. All right. Introduction. And I'm going to pause after the introduction and explain a little bit. And yep. The Rawlsian original position regarding equality and justice in economics and politics is often referenced in conversation on justice and democracy. However, a principle derived from similar foundations can also be used to critique moral and ideological attachments, emphasizing perspectivalism, which can foster a more universal understanding. This essay argues that the Rawlsian original position can be adapted as a thought experiment to critique ideological attachments and promote epistemic detachment, thereby enabling individuals to reassess their beliefs and overcome dogmatism. So that has some philosophical jargon in it that I'm going to unpack. So, as you could probably guess, Rawlsian refers to John Rawls, the philosopher I mentioned a few minutes ago. And the original position is based on a state of fairness and equality, where people don't know who they are themselves out of self-interest. I could explain that more detailed, but that's where I'm going to start. And epistemic detachment is basically detachment from your own opinions on what's true, what knowledge is. So essentially what I'm saying in that introduction is that detaching from your own opinions can help detach people from excessive dogmatism and review their beliefs in a more impartial way. So the next section is called application to moral detachment and genealogical luck. All right. Rawls explains his hypothetical veil of ignorance, another term and concept that Rawls uses. No one knows his place in society, his class position or social status, nor does he know his fortune in the distribution of natural assets and abilities, his intelligence, strength, and the like. I shall even assume, just had to burp, that the parties do not know their conceptions of the good or their special psychological propensities. The principles of justice are chosen behind a veil of ignorance. The original position highlights the value of ignorance and the potential downfalls of knowledge. What individuals perceive as true when overly influenced by their characteristics and experiences may no longer hold in the impartial context of the hypothetical original position. When it comes to moral or religious views, people oftentimes have opinions because of their characteristics, history, and aspirations. What a person considers absolute truth in an original position could easily contradict what one's currently conditioned beliefs are. In many soteriological, which means doctrine of salvation, moral, or philosophical systems, an attachment to the creator or benefactors makes the believer unable to see past their preferred traditions. The attached person only sees what they were told, and psychological, financial, or physical dependence on the identity makes the attachment strong. So I'll stop there to explain some stuff. The first part of this section was a definition, more detailed than I gave before, about what an original position is, according to John Rawls, that I quoted from his book, A Theory of Justice. Then I explained more about the impartiality of an original position and how it could be applied. And then I go into more specifics about how it could be attached to certain kinds of knowledge and identities and how it makes an attachment strong. I'm going to continue. I propose people not only apply the Rawlsian veil of ignorance qualities cited earlier, but others, which are going to be related to genealogical luck, which I'm going to define for you. Here's the other qualities. Firstly, ignorance of any spiritual or cultural tradition that one may favor. Secondly, ignorance of what they consider to be true, even basic ideas and definitions of words. So my reasoning behind that is that people prefer certain traditions because they're attached to them. So hypothetically, you detach using this thought experiment from your cultural and preferred traditions. And the definition of word thing might be sort of confusing, so I'm going to explain that. So ignorance of what you consider true, obviously if you have certain presuppositions about what you consider true, you might not be open to what could be true. There are plenty of things that you may be wrong about because no one's perfect. In definitions of words, basic ideas, people say, oh, the world's objective because you throw a ball on the ground. Or they try and compare the world to they try and use very simple physical qualities to say, oh, if this is true, my other belief is true. So basic ideas that you use as a reference point, letting go of that. And also definitions of words. That's a specific kind of basic idea that people use to cling to knowledge from their perspective. For example, you could say, oh, I think this is true. And someone will go no, that's not what that word means. It means this. Some very fixed definition that they think is true. Or they take scientific definitions and apply it somewhere where it doesn't make sense. So that's why I included that section of this essay. All right, I'm going to continue after that. In the same spirit as Rawls, this thought experiment conceptualizes universal knowledge in a state that counterbalances justice and also genealogical luck, the accidental or arbitrary factors that shape an individual's epistemological environment. That last part is the definition of genealogical luck. So, yeah. These characteristics are elaborated on at length by Srinivasan, who I like. She's a great philosopher from Oxford. I hope I didn't butcher her name. I cited her right now. Each of us finds himself not just already in a world, but already in a particular world, a particular moment in history, a particular culture, a particular family, a particular language, a particular body. What is more, our representations of the world, our beliefs, values, and concepts are radically shaped by these contingent facts about where we find ourselves in the space of possibility. So that's the citation explaining, like I did for the original position, what qualities are included in genealogical luck after the simple definition. Srinivasan's ideas emphasize the pervasive influence of genealogical luck, reinforcing the need for an epistemic detachment, similar to what the original position demands. All right. So I hope you get the general idea from my commentary, and I didn't just confuse you, but yeah. Basically, you have certain identities, certain characteristics, and thought experiments like this, even though Rawls didn't apply it in his work, can be combined with other work to show that you could use similar techniques to detach. And I came up with sort of an interesting example of this, of like someone who would be in an extreme position where it would be hard to detach. And that's what this next section is on, and I can't stop burping. As normal. All right. Example of Shelley fake name. Obviously, Shelley is a fake person because her last name is fake name. Even if one's reasons for believing something are not very reliable, what they claim could be true. For example, Shelley fake name could be born into a religious family. Their hypothetical religion is called Lastism, and they become a shaman of it. Lastism is a religion based on its founders' prophecies, with dates and predictions, claims to universal knowledge, and soteriological instructions. And just to remind you, soteriological refers to doctrines of salvation, since that's sort of an obscure word. Shelley fake name believes in the prophecies literally and never strays from them to be considered a loyal follower. It is a coincidence that every single thing about Lastism is true except for one thing, that the founder was from outer space. So, I'll say this in the simplest way possible. The creator of the religion has a bunch of prophecies that they can prove as true with dates, but they lied because they're from Earth, actually, but they always say they're from outer space to get authority. Next paragraph. There is no way to prove that Lastism's founder is not from outer space, but there is evidence every time that a prophecy comes true with dates. The founder never prophesied anything that would reveal the truth about them lying about being from outer space. It's an unfalsifiable untruth, so you can't prove it wrong and prove that it's not true. Shelley knows everything about Lastism except the truth about its founder's origin. Her knowledge is a product of genealogical luck rather than deliberate inquiry. And remember the definition of genealogical luck from before, those list of characteristics that I cited from Srinivasan. If Shelley were to intentionally set aside her attachments and conditioned beliefs, she could approach the truth with greater freedom and openness. If they were still emotionally attached to being a shaman or their upbringing, they would feel perfectly justified in their self-righteousness, even though it is never perceptible other than through faith in the founder. So I intentionally don't give details about how this founder got this information. But what I'm saying is that Shelley believes that it's true. She also doesn't have any reason other than faith in the founder for knowing these predictions. This kind of original position could liberate them from this kind of dogmatism. Using this kind of thought experience spiritually can free excessive dogmatism and relativism by encouraging people to examine themselves. It may not always be possible to detach from genealogical luck or use the Rawlsian-style veil of ignorance to dissolve bias for universal knowledge. All thought experiments can be abused or taken too far, and the decision of where that line is debatable. So what I'm saying there is don't take this too far and abuse the thought experiment to become dogmatic itself. Remember that, please. Please don't do that. All right. In the real world, most ideologies are much further from the truth compared to lastism. People believe all kinds of things in the same way Shelley does, and will be wrong to the extent that their moral prescriptions and self-referential, referring back to the partially true sources they attach to, that's in the essay, self-referential logic is all they base their worldview on. One could see it as a metaphorical spectrum based on who can detach from a particularly conditioned frame of mind, and those who never can see perspectives beyond ideological attachments, logic, and or methods. So let me just summarize here. So I made up this fake situation, just like the original position is a hypothetical thought position. Basically this, I feel like Zizek when I do that. Like I'm like, what am I? Anyways, Shelley is using self-referential thinking, always referring back to the founder to show that they're true, but they're wrong about everything they're right about everything, coincidentally, other than the outer space fact. And I was just saying that in the real world, most philosophies are much further from the truth than just having one thing that could be wrong, not only in base facts, but in interpretations of the facts that they claim. Broader implications and conclusions. This is the last section of the essay. To the extent that one's truth is based on these kinds of attachments, their understanding is on accident. There is no personal account to explain their knowledge other than their systematic, self-referential attachments. Shelley and those who resemble her personality could be told. I said it wrong. Could be told blatant lies, and there's no way they can see it, unless they have a reliable standard to detach themselves from their ego. Ego doesn't just include I, me, mine, or seemingly selfish things, but also I believe this is true because, or lastism is the only real religion. The person's ego is still clinging to I know this, and therefore I. It gratifies ego on an emotional level, especially in her will to truth. Shelley is the one experiencing her life and chooses not to look outside of the system of thought she is attached to. The original position is not merely a tool for achieving justice or equality. It can also serve as a method for deconstructing attachments to beliefs. By suspending their conditioned perspectives, even temporarily, individuals can critically reassess their commitment to truths they hold dear and consider whether those truths may be distorted by bias. Yay! All right, that was my essay, and I think you get the point that it's a tool for detaching from conditioned beliefs, and that the ideas that John Rawls created back in the 70s has a more universal application than most people believe. And I believe that this is the case because of the tradition that John Rawls comes from, I suppose. It's not really dealing with spirituality, so it really wasn't his intention to apply his ideas to those kinds of situations. But as readers and philosophers, we can apply this to different things. And it reminds me of one of the most popular TV shows right now. I'll give you a good example of Severance. Severance, whether intentionally or unintentionally, puts people from a certain perspective into a veil of ignorance, they're under a veil of ignorance in an original position. They forget who they are, and on the outside, they have in the world. Also, I forgot to give a spoiler alert. So, if you haven't watched this show, don't listen, or just watch it and then rewatch the rest of this video. Okay, I'm not going to be accused of being a spoiler. All right, so yeah, basically they're on the outside, they of their workplace, they think this company's all great, and like then on the inside they forget who they are on the outside, and they're basically trapped in a prison, and controlled by the managers there, and they realize in that position of ignorance what the company actually is, because they're not attached to it. They're not attached to, oh, I just got this controversial surgery to sever the two parts of my brain so I don't remember. So that's an example of like, in a sense, it's a inversion of Plato's cave, because in the cave, there's people chained to the wall, and they're looking at shadows, and then they can't see what's on the outside is good, so they only think that what they see is real. So ignorance in that situation is the factor that's preventing people from more universal knowledge. But the exact opposite can also be true, where you're living in the world, the broad world, and you've been conditioned to believe certain things internally. You're not constrained physically, but you're constrained mentally because of the way you relate to the world. And because you relate to the world in that way, you require a certain form of detachment from your own opinions to be able to assess knowledge and see things differently. And just consider that hypothetical lastism in Shelley fake name. Like, it's, to a certain extent, there are people in the world who have similar positions in their life, where they have a position of being a shaman or a practitioner of some sort of tradition, and they are so attached to it, to a certain extent, because of luck, because that's the way their life has unfolded. And it takes a certain amount of detachment from your own position, hence the original position, the stupid clicking, to be able to like understand that like there's other ways that might be more universal. Not to just give up everything that's not completely impartial, but just using that position as a place to evaluate what could be influencing me to be biased. Yeah, and I don't know what else to say. Anyways, please subscribe or unsubscribe if you hate me. And yeah, keep being interested in cool stuff, and